let me I'm trying to get the best possible best possible device so that I don't have anything worrying me by the time I'm done. Okay, I think this one is better than. Okay, give me a minute. Okay. All right. So because whenever I do lives, I put it on other platforms so that I won't be forced to start repeating. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining. I have people on YouTube, I have people on Facebook, and I have people now on with you on Instagram. So can an addict? Oh, Tayo Idoko says, good evening, Mama. God bless you for your ministration at Family Worship Center yesterday and today. May your testimonies never end. Amen. Okay, can an addict or depressed person find healing? Who is an addict? An addict is a person who has controlling behaviors. Behaviors that control the person, and those controlling behaviors have negative sides and negative consequences. An addict is a person who has behaviors that are interfering with the person's general good, interfering with the person's relationships, interfering with the person's finances. An addict is a person who has a struggle, and every time you attempt to separate the person from the struggle, there's anxiety. When you try to separate the alcoholic from his alcohol, he will fight you. There's anxiety. When you try to separate the smoker from his cigarette, he will fight you. There's anxiety. When you try to separate the cocaine addict from his cocaine, there's anxiety. He will fight you. Why? At the height of addiction is actually idolatry. At the height of addiction is idolatry. What is idolatry? Idolatry is wanting your needs met in the immediate rather than the eternal. You want your needs to be met in the immediate rather than the eternal. What is the immediate? The pleasure of the substance, the pleasure of the habit, the pleasure of the behavior. What is the eternal? God. Every time you try to fill any hole in your life, any need, any lack, anytime you try to fill it up with anything other than God, you are in idolatry. So the substance or the habit becomes an idol in your life. So there are two types of addicts or two types of addictions. One is substance abuse, where the person takes substances, alcohol, cigarettes, food, hard drugs, over-the-counter drugs. Yeah, I had a Coke addiction for many years. I had a Coca-Cola addiction for many years. So those are all substance abuse or substance-based addictions. The other type of addiction is behavioral addictions. Behavioral. Now, behavioral will include things like anger. There is anger addiction, in case you didn't know. There is gambling addiction.
Wow.
Gambling addiction is a behavioral addiction. Work addiction is a fine line between hard work and work addiction. There's a difference between a hard worker and a work addict.
Oh my God.
Those are behavioral addictions. There is shopping. The people they call shopaholics. That is a behavioral addiction. There are gaming addicts. People who play game. You know, some people have played game for days on end. They can't even get up and go out. They've died on the chair.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
we have stories of people who died on the chair playing games because they couldn't afford to get up to even go and drink water or to pee. They die on the chair. We have internet addiction. We have phone addiction now. We have sex addiction. And sex addiction is expressed in many ramified uh, ways. I can't even begin to tell you all. But these are all forms of addiction. So, addiction addiction can cause depression, especially for somebody who has worked and struggled to see if they can fight the addiction, if they can overcome the addiction, and it's not going anywhere. They can become depressed. Many times people who are struggling with depression, the psychiatric doctor who helps people like that finds out that it is the drug use that is triggering the depression. It is the addiction that is triggering the depression. So for some of the substances they are taking are mood depressants. They are depressants themselves. Like alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant. So if you already have a susceptibility to alcohol and to depression, maybe there's a hereditary factor, you start taking alcohol, you are triggering that part of the brain that is susceptible to depression. You are adding another depressive agent. You can trigger full-blown clinical depression. For some,
this is making a lot of sense.
Yes.
With so many of my settlers.
Okay.
People who have been in this
Okay.
position.
Okay. So, for some, there's a deficiency of certain chemicals in the brain already, because for some their depression is an imbalance of hormones in the brain, and for some of them is hereditary. Now you already have that imbalance, then you go and start taking other substances, so you trigger. Let me back up. So they brought a young man to our rehab. He had psychosis, was running mad. In fact, he had run mad. And when they brought him to me, they said he had been at the Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital for months because they were trying to help him stabilize. But they felt that now he didn't need the hospital environment. They needed to bring him to a rehabilitation center. And I found out that he has two brothers, and their mother was presently at that time at the teaching hospital psychiatric unit. She had mental issues. She was mad. So there's madness in the family. Now, one of the brothers has a very high-flying job in a powerful government parastatal. The other brother was in university. Only this one was mad. What was the difference between him and the brothers? He started smoking Indian hemp. So what did the Indian hemp do? The part of the brain that the Indian hemp messes with when you take interfered or interacted with the mental psychosis penchant that was already in the family, and it triggered madness in this one. Yes, so the drugs triggered the madness. It was there, but it was dormant. But once he put in the drugs, it triggered the condition. So these are all circumstances in which people can get into either addiction or depressive states. So today our topic is, can an addict or a depressed person find healing? I've tried to define what an addict is. An addict is the person who forms a habit, and the habit turns around and he forms the addict. You form a habit, the habit turns around and forms you. What do I mean? When you go to any village and you say, I'm looking for John, they say, which John? John na Nwachukwu's son. They say, which one? Finally, the person will say, is it John the drunkard? And you say, you should have just said John the drunkard since I for tell you where in day. So he has a name. His name is John, but because of the drinking, his name has changed to drunkard. So he formed a habit, and the habit has now formed him, or is forming him. You know, so that's how I also define addiction. But any habit you have that the threat of it being taken away triggers anxiety, that's already an addiction right there. Why? It's idolatry. That thing ultimately becomes your God. And we were created to need God. We are created to need God, any God. So if I already have a God enthroned in my idolatry as alcohol, and you come and you want to take that God from me, unless you can show me another God that will immediately fill that hole, I'm going to hold on to my first God. I need him. Now, the reason people don't turn to God is because God is not going to immediately heal you from the addiction, immediately become the Lord of your life. No, you work at releasing your flesh to the Lord to daily influence. So that is why you try to take the addiction from the addict. He will fight because you are trying to take his God. And he's not seen another God that can fill that hole, so he will fight you. He will resist you. He will run away if you take him to rehab center. All right? So these are the various ways that I can define addiction for you. That's one. Two, depression for many is a chemical imbalance in the brain. And for those who have a chemical imbalance in the brain, all that is needed is a visit to the doctor. And there is only a specific kind of doctor that prescribes medications for this condition, and he's called a psychiatrist. Like Daniela said earlier, she said there's a lot of stigmatization and disinformation and misinformation about mental health. Even in the Western world, where they are supposed to be more advanced, there is still some level of stigmatization for people who suffer with mental health issues. So once you tell somebody you need to go to the psychiatrist, they say, no, I'm not mad, I never colo. No. Okay, so I don't know, some of you may know that I had an accident and I injured my hands in October last year, and I've been dealing with some painful side effects of, I think I badly wounded ligaments and tendons in my hand, because there's no fracture, there is no dislocation, but I'm in a lot of pain. So it's now, I saw a doctor in the US. I saw a doctor in Nigeria before I traveled. They're the ones that did the x-ray and said there's no fracture, there's no, so they put me on some medications, but I was in a lot of pain. So I saw a doctor in America, and he's a general practitioner. He's a primary physician. He's a physician. He's not specialized in any, he's a doctor of general medicine. After seeing my hands, he did x-rays, and he said, truly what they told you in Nigeria is true, there's no fracture. He said, but let me place you on a different kind of medication to see if it will help and help the pain. So he put me on those medications, and they didn't help the pain. And I got back to him. He said, I have to send you to a hand specialist, a hand doctor. What is the hand doctor going to do for me? He is specialized in treating injuries of the hand. That's his area. Now, when my daughter was doing her transplant in California, we stayed with a family, and that family, the wife had a problem with her thyroid, and they needed to do a surgery. But when she went to the surgery, the doctor said to her, I cannot do your surgery because your adenoids are swollen. And if your adenoids are swollen, if I try to do the surgery on your thyroid, you can stop breathing. It can block your air pipe. So we have to do that one first. So they sent her to a doctor. The only thing that doctor works on is adenoids. She does not handle throat. She does not handle mouth. She does not handle neck. Only adenoids. So doctors specialize in different areas. The psychiatrist is specialized in mental health treatment. And mental health is not only madness. Mental health is not only psychosis. Personality disorders are mental health issues. Addictions are mental health issues. Depression is a mental health issue. Bipolar disorder is a mental health issue. Schizophrenia is a mental health issue. Psychosis, which is madness, is also a mental health issue. So the psychiatrist is trained to handle issues like that. So where the depression is just a mental health,